What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be going in depth in the swing head football jig. This is a great way to catch fish throughout the year, and its prime season is coming up soon in this pre-spawn season that we're just about to go in. We're kind of still in winter, but these fish are starting to move, and they're going to be moving around, and that's where one of these swing head jigs are going to really shine. And for anybody new, my name is Matt Luna. I put out a lot of how-to videos, on the water fishing videos, tournament fishing videos, and how to make your own tackle videos. So if that sounds like something you guys want to watch, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, in today's video, we're going to be going in depth. We're going to be talking about the jigs themselves. We're going to be talking about soft plastic baits to be pairing up these jig with. We're going to be talking about rods, reels, lines, hook sets, how to fish these baits. We're going in depth, and after watching this video, I know you're going to have confidence in this technique, and you're going to be able to take it out onto your own body of water and have success. So one of the first things I want to talk to you guys about is the jig itself. This is a swing head jig that I make myself using a do-it-mold, and I'll link that down in the description of today's video. But basically, you have a football style head with an EWG wide gap style hook that is fixed and connected to the jig itself. As you can see, you have all kinds of range of motion with the jig. It's going to give that soft plastic that you rig up there a lot of action. It's going to let it be very natural down on the bottom. Another great jig that you guys have at your disposal that you can just go to the store and buy is this 6th Sense Fishing Core X swing jig right here. This thing has that rotation in it as well, and then it also has this spring screw lock where you're going to be able to screw your baits into the head and then also still get that weedless action with that EWG style hook right there. Bunch of different head sizes, but you're still going to get that natural motion, and then you're not going to have any worries about the head of your soft plastic falling down the shank like you do on this style head right here. Sometimes when I'm fishing these, the head will end up sliding down from the eye of the hook, but when you have a screw lock version like this, that's not gonna happen. And don't forget, guys, I'm gonna be linking everything down in the description of today's video, the molds to make these yourself or where you can buy these 6th Sense ones. If you buy the 6th Sense ones, you can get a discount on them with my discount code LUNA10. But we're gonna move into what kind of weights you're gonna be looking at when making or fishing these jigs. And I like to go with heavier versions. These are both 1/2 ounce right here, but typically I'm gonna be fishing probably a 5/8 ounce, anywhere between, I would say, about 15 foot of water down to about 25 to 30. Now, if I'm gonna be going shallower, that's where I'm gonna go with this 1/2 ounce, and then maybe even down to a 3/8 ounce, depending on how shallow I wanna fish this. But anytime you start getting deeper and deeper, you're gonna have to start fishing heavier and heavier weights, and you might have to slow your retrieve down in order to maintain bottom contact. I think bottom contact is very key with these baits as well. You want to be fishing this probably mostly around rock. You can definitely fish it around brush, but when you expose the bait, which we'll go into that later in the video, when we rig this bait on there, and a lot of times that hook point's going to be sticking out just a little bit, so sometimes when you're fishing this around brush, you can get hung up a little bit more than if you had like a round bend style, but I don't recommend the round bend styles on this jig because I think you're going to end up with hookup ratio issues. You need something with that wider gap down there to make sure that plastic comes down and you get that hook point through the fish's mouth. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go into some soft plastic options for you guys when it comes to throwing these swing head football jigs. I like the 6th Sense Stroker Craw, and I also like the 6th Sense Prawn for my soft plastic trailers on there. My favorite by far has been the 6th Sense Stroker Craw. This bait right here ends up giving you a lot of action. When you pull these out of the package, they are gonna be attached to themselves a little bit. So you're definitely gonna wanna pull those apart because then you're gonna start getting a ton of action out of these little claws. This double tail grub style trailer, give it a nice craw pattern on there, but this is definitely a great bait when it comes to the swing head football jig. I've caught tons and tons of fish on this exact setup with that dual molds jig that I make myself paired up with one of these Stroker Craws. So the next bait that I'm going to talk to you guys about is the 6th Sense Prawn. I think these beaver style baits like the 6th Sense Prawn is a great option. And one of the reasons why I like these on the wobble head is because it's gonna give you another bulky plastic that's gonna go on these hooks really well. You wanna separate these claws down at the bottom, but it's gonna give you a totally different action. I like the Stroker Craw like I was just showing you guys because it gives off a lot of action. So if those fish are aggressive, then they're gonna want something with more action like that 6th Sense Stroker Craw. They're gonna be a little bit less aggressive, maybe it's winter time or something like that, the beaver style bait of the 6th Sense Prawn is gonna be perfect. You're gonna get a lot less action out of these, which sometimes is the difference between getting bit or not. So the first pairing that I have for you guys is the Stroker Craw with the Do It Molds swing head football jig. And what you wanna do is you're just gonna put this hook right through the center of the bait. And you don't want to go down very far, just maybe 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 inch, something like that. You're gonna come right out the bait, so that way it's hanging down just like so. Now we're gonna move this bait all the way up the shank of the hook, and you wanna make sure you have a little bit of distance between the hook eye and the wire form that the hook is on, so that way you're not impacting any of the movement. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna expose this bait. You wanna kind of take a look and go towards the bottom bend of the hook and go straight through your bait. And you're gonna come right on out the center of this stroker craw, just like that. And then you're gonna expose it, which basically you're gonna pinch a little bit of this bait, and then it's gonna pop right back down, so the nose of that hook is back inside the bait. So now we're gonna go into the 6th Corex swinging head right here with this screw lock. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your 6th prawn and you're gonna just poke that screw lock in there, and you start bending, you start twisting everything on to that screw lock, and you just twist this prawn right up to the top of it, just like so. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna wanna measure the bottom of that hook bend, and you wanna come straight through your prawn, so that way that hook is sticking out just like so. And then you're gonna expose everything just like I did on the last one. And now your bait is ready to fish. This thing is gonna work really well, but as you can see, the 6-inch stroker crawl, which is right here, and you have the 6-inch prawn, which is right here, definitely gonna get more action out of this guy than you are this guy, but depending on time of year, this one's gonna outfish the prawn, but other times of the year, the prawn is gonna outfish the stroker crawl, and it's all dependent upon the activity level of the fish that you're around. So as you can see, guys, putting this setup together and getting it ready to put on your rod and reel to fish is super simple. Just a couple pieces of tackle and you're ready to go fishing. But real quick, I wanna talk to you guys about the 6th Super 6 sack. I got it right here. This is a great subscription sack that 6th has to offer. Basically what you do is you sign up on the 6th website, and you're gonna use code Luna Super 6. It's gonna save you 10 bucks off your first month. And basically you're getting tackle sent to your door every single month. By far the best subscription tackle service on the market. You get awesome quality baits from 6th. You're getting soft plastics, you're getting hard baits, you're getting jigs, you're getting hooks. You're getting so many different types of fishing tackle that it's hard to beat. It's by far the best on the market. So if you want to check out some more of these unboxing videos where I'm actually going through and opening up these sacks and showing you exactly what types of products you're going to get by signing up for this subscription service, make sure to click one of the links down in the description of today's video. I'll link some of those unboxing videos down there so you guys can check that out. But if you decide you want to go sign up for the Super 6 sack from 6th Fishing, make sure to use code Luna Super 6. It's going to save you money off your first month. So next what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the rod and reel combo paired up with the line that I like to use for this swing head football jig combo. I like to use the same setup that I'm gonna be using for my Carolina rigs or my heavier football style jigs. And what that setup is the 6-inch unicorn rod in the 7'4" heavy action model. I feel like that rod is super light, it's super sensitive, but it's got enough backbone to get those hook sets in. Because a lot of times you're making really long casts, you're fishing deep water sometimes, especially if you have these heavier swing head jigs on there, and you're really around a lot of brush, you're around a lot of rocks, so you're gonna want to make sure you have a good quality fluorocarbon line on there as well. I'm always fishing at least 15-pound test fluorocarbon. Usually it's gonna be Seaguar or Sunline. And like I said, links to all this stuff are gonna be down in the description of the video. But then that line is gonna be paired up with a Daiwa Tatula SV. Sometimes you might see on the channel the Tatula SVTW103. I like to use those reels interchangeably, but primarily 99% of the time you're gonna be seeing me throw this combo on that 7'4" unicorn rod. The main thing to take into consideration when picking a rod and reel with this setup is that you need a rod with a little bit of length to get those long casts, to get the leverage on those hook sets. You want something with some backbone, which is why I like that heavier action rod as well. And then I like a 7:3 gear ratio reel, or something in that 7.0 gear ratio. You don't want something super, super fast, but you don't want something super slow as well, because sometimes you do end up with a little bit of slack when fishing this, and you need that higher gear ratio in order to reel up some of that slack, really get that hook into those fish, and then being able to get them out of cover. So I think that 7'4" unicorn rod to that 7:3 gear ratio Daiwa Tatula SV really gets the job done, and I like having a good quality fluorocarbon like FC Sniper from Sunline or an Abrazex or an Invizex from Seaguar. So now we're gonna go into the retrieves for this swing head football jig combo. I really think that some videos based on comments that I've seen are missing the how to actually fish it. We're talking about the rod, the reel, the line, all the different components, but we're missing the part where we're talking about actually how to fish it, the retrieve of this setup. So I'm going to talk about 3 different ones that I think are really effective with the swing head football jig. The first one I'm going to talk about is basically your steady retrieve, where you're going to cast this thing out, it's going to let it go all the way to the bottom, and then all you basically are doing is reeling this back nice and slow. You want to maintain contact with the bottom, so basically you're feeling that thing ticking the rocks down there. You're going to be reeling it slower than you would a traditional crankbait, but you're still maintaining contact with the bottom. You can't pick up the pace and test that out, but I've really found just that slow reel, not allowing it to really get stuck down there and not dragging it like a jig. I really find that that's one of the best ways to fish it. You just cast it out there and you just start slowly reeling it back. You need to make sure that you're feeling the bottom, that you're making contact with whatever cover is down there. So the next retrieve that I want to talk to you guys about is the slow reel pause retrieve or the slow drag and pause retrieve. And I kind of use those interchangeably. Sometimes I'll have that jig out there on the bottom once again, and you just slowly are turning that reel handle, moving it along the bottom, maintaining contact, and then you just pause it. Or then you're slowly dragging the rod tip, and then you pause it. That's one of my favorite ways to do it. You're doing it much faster than you would do it with a traditional football jig, but you're not giving it a nice, real fast presentation like a crankbait, but it's not as slow as your typical jig presentation. So you're basically casting it out there and you're slowly dragging it maybe 3-4 feet down there, and then you're letting it pause, you're reeling up that slack, slowly dragging it back, reeling up that slack, and then you're doing that over and over again. I feel like whether you're using the reel to move it or you're using the rod tip, I feel like you can do that interchangeably, but I think that that's another great option when it comes to retrieve with this technique. The third technique that I probably do the least with this combo is the typical worm or jig retrieve. You can definitely fish this just like you do a jig, just like you do a worm, where you cast this thing out and you just slowly are dragging it back, kind of bounce it off the bottom, letting it sit in place for a while, keeping it around that isolated piece of cover, just like you would a jig, just like you would a worm, something like that. I definitely think that's an option, but I don't think you're using this as effectively as you can, because I really feel like you can cover more water, target those same fish that you would be with the jig, but it's allowing you to fish faster and more efficiently. But sometimes those fish just want something slow down there, and they just want that thing just kind of slowly moving on the bottom, and being able to cast this thing out and just work it very, very similar to a traditional jig can be effective as well. So now I'm going to go into a couple different tips that I think are going to really help you with this technique. I like to keep my rod tip relatively low, because a lot of times this jig's going to be going down on the bottom and that fish is going to pick it up and move with the bait, and you're not going to feel that bite just like you would with a normal jig. So sometimes you just end up getting a pressure bite, and then you're going to eventually feel that pull, and you need to be able to get that hook set right then, because that fish has it. You've already missed a little bit of it, and then you need to just make up some of that time if possible and get that hook into that fish's mouth before they realize it's not real. So I think having a really sensitive rod, good fluorocarbon line to maximize your sensitivity, and then also just really being in tune with what's going down there and being ready for some of those strikes where they just pick it up and move with it, to where you're just starting to feel a little bit of pressure, you're just starting to feel a little bit of weight, and then really setting the hook nice and hard. Most of the strikes come when that bait's moving and they pick it up and run with it, and you're feeling that pressure bite, or you're starting to feel that fish turn with the bait and go back to maybe wherever they were coming from, and then you're setting the hook. I think setting the hook really hard for this technique is important as well, because a lot of times you have a lot of line out there, and if that fish is moving towards you, you're constantly getting slack put in your line. So even as you're reeling up, that fish is still moving towards you, so you're still having to fight and reel up fast and then still swing and trying to make up and take up ground. So you're definitely going to need to give them a nice good hook set like you would on a jig, and I think even a little bit harder with this technique as well. My favorite areas to fish this are around hard spots, whether it's going to be a hard clay bottom, around rock, but I've also found that you can fish this thing pretty effectively in grass. I've been in Sam Rayburn before fishing this, fishing it around some of that clay and some of that grass, and where that combination kind of came together was key, and you could just load the boat real quick and you get a bunch of bites in the same area. But I primarily am fishing this around rock, like I do with most of my jigs. Like I said though, you can fish it in a bunch of different types of cover, but those are kind of my typical places, are around the hard spots in the rock. That's where I found the most success and where I feel like I get the most bites. But don't be afraid to throw this around grass and in some of that brush as well. If you're going to be around the brush, you might get hung up because of the exposing it, but sometimes it's just a different presentation these fish haven't seen before, and it might get you some bites that you wouldn't otherwise get. Guys, I really think if you take the information I gave you in today's video about this combo, about the rod, the reel, the line, the baits, the jigs themselves, and put this stuff to the test, go out to your own bodies of water and find some of these areas like I'm talking about where there might be some grass or some brush or some rock or something like that, and try this technique out and fish it like I was describing in this video. I really think it's gonna help you, and I think you're gonna catch more fish.